Hello and welcome to Stupid Ancient History with Midgley
and Taylor and our expert, non-expert and special guest James the Science Toolboy.
Hello.
As always, we're wearing togas. Today we're eating a selection of cured meats and we're going to look at the Battle of Salamis. Previously on Stupid Ancient History, we looked at how Xerxes' invasion of Greece in 480 was going.
We would say it was a bit of a mixed bag.
No, it's going well.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, where's this mix come from? It's going pretty it's just going awful.
I mean, I'm not the one that writes the script, so we need to take that up with
To
him.
be fair, he had successfully defeated a combined Greek force led by the Spartans and their king Leonidas at Thermopylae.
There's a massive asterisk after
Yeah,
that.
I was going to say, but he lost a hell of a lot of men doing so it's not really something you could class as a great victory, is it?
He still won. And after the battle, he continued to advance to Athens, subjugating the Greek states such as Thebes on his way.
Although he did have a few problems with storms, lightning, giant stone soldiers, if you forgot about them.
How can we forget the giant stone soldiers? And finally, he did make it to Athens and fulfilled this generation-long Persian dream by burning it to the ground.
However, when he got there, he didn't actually kill that many people, did he? Because most of them had already done one and gone to the nearest islands.
Just the ones who couldn't afford to leave or who weren't worth taking.
Yeah, basically, the Muppets and the poor people were still locked in, weren't they?
Yeah, he's remembered Athens, not necessarily the Athenians.
I'd probably be disappointed after asking this. I'm guessing Salamis has nothing to do with Italian sausages.
Not really.
Oh.
Although it'd be good if it did. I would love it if they started fighting with their cured meats.
I mean, that wouldn't be the weirdest thing you'd said in this.
Call that a ham! This is Oh dear. No, not really. It's named after the Straits of Salamis, just south of Athens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah. But before we get into the details of what happened, we need to rewind a little bit, don't we?
Yeah. So if you remember a few episodes ago, as Xerxes invaded, the Greeks sent messengers to Delphi to get prophecies from the oracle.
This when they said to the Spartans, a king will die or a city will fall or something like that.
And the Athenians got two. One about trusting the wind, which they did.
Yeah, well, a storm did help destroy some of Xerxes' fleet, so that one kind of came true.
Yeah. And the other one was about building wooden walls.
The barricades in Athens that were burnt down.
Well, sort of. So, there were some in Athens who interpreted the wooden walls oracle literally, and they built wooden defences in Athens.
It felt a lot of good. It didn't know. I mean, wood can't stand up against fire, can it?
Not traditionally.
No.
But Themistocles, remember him?
Yes.
Admiral from the Battle of Artemisa and cunning plan. He had a different idea.
Yeah, so he'd interpreted the wooden walls to mean ships, particularly warships. So Athens had been a growing naval power and often used its navy as its kind of first line of defence.
Yeah, so he's thinking the wooden walls, a wall of ships around Athens.
Okay.
You'll never get us, Xerxes.
That kind of makes more sense, as opposed to just putting up a few planks and hoping he's going to keep an army out. Oh, we're safe now!
I've built a fence, it's fine.
It's like if there was an apocalypse and everyone just went, oh, let's just go and sit in the shed.
If you're trying to get sense out of the oracles, you might be there for a while. So, either way. Now, as well as being quite a cunning general, Themistocles was definitely a bit of a charmer and a crafty politician.
So he convinced the Athenian assembly that they should use the profits from a silver mine near Athens to build a fleet of brand new, top-of-the-line warships.
When was this? How long does it take to build a ship?
They were pretty quick. Do you remember how quickly they carved things into rocks?
Well, fair enough.
Things the Athenians are good at, carving stuff, making boats. No, this had been over a year.
Right, okay.
And obviously, all hands were building these ships. So when Xerxes burned Athens, his fleet of at least 100 ships and any others the Athenians could scrape together were safely harboured at Salamis, waiting to see what the Persians did next.
So they've got this massive fleet on an island nearby. Did they not just turn it around and, go and have a go at the Persians?
Not quite.
They've just burned their cities to the ground and they're just leaving them.
It's fine. So it's not just the Athenians, though, who are now gathered at Salamis, but this entire combined Greek fleet. The Athenians,
Hellenic League.
Yeah, the Hellenic League. The Athenians, the Spartans, the Corinthians, they're all still under the command of this Spartan admiral, Eurybiades.
As well, and as always, there's a lot of debate amongst the Greeks about what to do.
They don't do things quickly. They've got to have a chat about things first.
They didn't invent democracy. Sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah. So the Spartans and Corinthians, as always, want to retreat back to the Isthmus of Corinth again because they see no point staying now that Athens has fallen.
Themistocles, however, has got another idea, and he wants to fight the Persians in the narrow straits between Salamis and Africa. Sorry, not Africa, Attica. Not Africa. Where he thinks the Greeks will have a better chance.
Would the Persians fall for that again? They've not learned a lesson about naval battle or any sort of battle in a narrow space with the Greeks?
It seems not.
Right,
seems
okay.
not. I mean, this is obviously one thing that everyone's going to be considering. You know, fool me once.
Yeah.
But Xerxes, he's committed to this plan.
He's full Sectrex mode.
Yeah. So after a series of heated debates, Eurybiades is eventually persuaded to stay and fight. However, Themistocles is not convinced that this is going to work. So a lot of the Greek commanders are independently now talking about retreating. So even though Eurybiades has said, we'll stay, Themistocles is not convinced. He still thinks various contingents, particularly the Corinthians apparently, are ready to just sneak off.
Right, okay.
And he needs everyone. So at this point, this Hellenic League alliance is incredibly weak. And like I said, Eurybiades' decision is not necessarily going to hold the sway it should do with all of these factions. So even though he's technically won the debate, there's going to be a degree of some admirals going, nah, sack this, I'm off.
Is this just Greeks being Greeks?
This is Greeks being Greeks. And Themistocles, for all his skill, realises that the people you can trust the least in this situation are
Other Greeks.
But also, if people even do decide to stay, they're not necessarily going to fight to the best of their ability, are they? If that's how they feel, they might just kind of be there, but not be that much
he's been trying
use.
to get the Persian navy to do exactly the same.
Yeah.
He's worrying that they'll turn up, fight badly, and go, oh, what's that over there? Oh, sorry, we'll see you later.
So how much the Persian navy is made up of these Ionian Greeks?
At least half.
Okay.
So it's a pretty big number, though. So yeah, Themistocles, he's won the debate, but he's still not convinced.
So while they're all just stood about having a row about this, does Xerxes not just go and attack them?
Well, no. Whilst the Greeks are holding...
Every question, one day we ask a question and the answer will not be, well, maybe, a bit, no.
No, it'll mostly be no.
Xerxes has got the same idea, hasn't he?
Yes.
So he's basically also holding his own war council to try and decide what to do.
And he has two main options. They can attack the Greek navy here, which is what he thinks is going to be the best plan. I think he basically just wants to rack up a win because it's not been growing well. He's getting a bit bored of it. So he can either fight the navy, the Greek navy there, or he can march on the Isthmus and the Peloponnese and head straight to Sparta.
Okay.
So he can either sail round the Greeks and hope they don't notice, or he can fight them there. So he sends his general, Mardonius, to get the opinion of all of his generals. So Mardonius is duly sent off to all the naval commanders. This is the plan, what do you think? And Herodotus tells us...
Bear with me 1 minute.
Find the page.
Find the page. So Xerxes sent Mardonius to ask the opinion of each one about giving battle at sea. Mardonius accordingly went around putting his question, beginning with the Lord of Sidon. The answers, with a single exception, were unanimously in favour of engaging the Greek fleet. The exception was Artemisia.
Who's Artemisia?
Right, Artemisia is really, really interesting. She is a she, which is really interesting.
Okay.
She's a queen of Caria near Halicarnassus, which is where Herodotus is from.
Okay, so she's Greek.
She's Greek, ethnically Greek, but on the Persian side.
So she's Ionian? Or?
Yeah, Ionian Greek. But she's really, really interesting. She's this woman whose husband died and left her in charge of this whole region. So it's really unusual that she's a
How
female.
did that go down?
Well, seemingly fine, because apparently, by all accounts, she was that badass no one wanted to mess with her.
Cool.
I
So-
like this woman. She
She's-
sounds good.
She's brilliant. She's, by this time, maybe in her 40s. She's a very, very experienced naval commander. She's basically the go-to person if you want someone sinking.
Right,
And we know Xerxes has a lot of respect for her, because there's this piece of archaeology, this nice vase that's inscribed from basically to Artemisia, love Xerxes, you are
Aw.
awesome. So she's really, really well respected, and she is like the badass of the Persian navy. So it's interesting as well that she says no.
So if she doesn't think they should attack the fleet, what does she think they do? Go to Sparta?
Well, she clearly doesn't think that fighting the Greeks here is a good idea. According to Herodotus, she says,
Master, my past services give me the right to advise you now upon the course which I believe to be the most to your advantage. It is this: spare your ships and do not fight at sea, for the Greeks are as far superior to your men in naval matters as men are to women. In any case, what pressing need have you to risk further actions at sea? Have you not taken Athens, the main objective of the war?
Okay, she sounds sensible.
yeah. And then she follows up with,
If, on the other hand, you rush into a naval action, my fear is that the defeat of your fleet may involve the army too. And put away in your heart one other point, my lord, to be considered. Good masters, remember, usually have bad servants, and bad masters good ones. You, then, being the best master in the world, are ill served. These people who are supposed to be your allies, these Egyptians, is it Cyprians? Caprians, Cilicians, Pamphylians, are a useless lot.
Right, okay. So she's not keen on all her other mates
No.
who are in this thing. She's quite bold, isn't she? It's like telling him no.
yes.
Doesn't seem to go well for other people.
No, especially the state that Xerxes is in at. the
Well,
moment.
he's in full sex mode.
Yeah. So, and again, many of her friends actually really fear she's overstepped the mark,
Okay.
and bad things are going to happen to her. But it does seem that Xerxes respects her opinion and her leadership. So,
Okay.
It doesn't basically change anything, and so all the blokes have gone along with the plan to attack. Here's what you should do. And she's basically going, no, don't listen to them. They're muppets. Listen to me. I've got a better idea.
Even though I'm going to say women are worse than men, ignore all these men.
yeah,
Listen to me.
you have this situation where Artemisia comes up with a sensible plan. Xerxes goes, yeah, I see what you mean, but you know, the lads want to fight here, so sorry, they're going with the lads.
Still being sexist then.
Absolutely, but you know, she's not dead, she's not out of it yet. Artemisia will come back.
I hope she proves him wrong, that's all I'm going to say. And then kicks the ass of all the other ones that she was saying was useless, just to prove a point.
So what does happen then?
Well, that evening the Persian fleet starts moving into position just beyond the Straits of Salamis. So it's still a huge fleet, and it's obviously going to take some organising because there's so many of them. So seeing the Persian fleet lining up for battle, the Greek commanders again call a meeting, with half of them still wanting to retreat.
Okay.
Greeks. What should we do? Let's have a chat about what we're going to do. But the Persians are right that it'd be fine. So no full decision is made, because again, it's this split. Do we run away? Do we fight here? So no full decision's made, and fearing what is going to happen, I mean, it's all, Themistocles' worry is actually happening. The naval force is splitting in front of him. Themistocles pulls off one of the craftiest tricks in the history of tricks.
Cool.
So he secretly sends out one of his most trusted slaves, a man called Sicinius, with a message for the Persian command.
Oh.
And his message says,
I am the bearer of a secret communication from the Athenian commander, who is a well-wisher to your king and hopes for a Persian victory. What a turncoat.
careful.
He has told me to report to you that the Greeks are afraid and are planning to slip away. Only prevent them from slipping through your fingers, and you have at this moment an opportunity of unparalleled success. They are at daggers drawn with each other and will offer no opposition. On the contrary, you will see the pro-Persians amongst them fighting the rest.
Right.
So he's basically telling Xerxes it's a shower of...
Yeah, you can just roll over these lot.
Pretty much.
I think I can kind of see where this is going, but go on. Why was this such a crafty move?
Well, given the state of the Greek alliance, the Persians obviously believe him. You know, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
It sounds plausible, doesn't it?
They've spent more time arguing amongst themselves than doing anything.
Yeah. So to stop the Greeks escaping, they send squadrons of ships around the island of Salamis to cut off any retreat if they do try and sail away.
Yeah, I mean, this is just what Themistocles wanted. As soon as he knew they'd fallen for his trick, he gathered the Greek commanders to watch the Persians block their escape. So this idea of running away, he settles the argument of whether to fight at Salamis or not.
Because he's blocked off their own retreat.
Yeah, they're trapped, they can't escape. The people who want to retreat now can't, so they are now committed to fighting at Salamis.
I do like this. Do the other Greeks ever find out what he's done?
Well,
So that was kind of just the half of it.
Okay.
So by telling Xerxes that Themistocles, leader of the Athenian force, was not a threat to him, he influences how Xerxes basically plans his attack.
Okay.
so he does the one thing that every general wishes they could do. They're planning the enemy's strategy
Yeah.
for him. He's basically saying to Xerxes, look, don't worry about us. We're just going to do badly, or maybe have a go at these other guys. Send your best troops to them and maybe attack us with a rowing boat.
Right, okay.
And Xerxes clearly falls for it and does exactly what Themistocles wants.
Are we going to start fighting now?
Yes, we are going to start. You're so impatient, James.
No.
Well, they've been building up for this for however many years.
Best things come to those who wait, don't forget.
Well, Darius waited lots too long, didn't he?
Yeah. So, as we said before, the Persians fall for Themistocles' trick absolutely, and they deploy their forces accordingly.
So thinking the Spartans and other allies were the greatest threat, they concentrated their best ships on the left, thinking the Athenians to their right would quickly retreat and give up.
Okay.
And they also started moving the whole fleet into this narrow strait of Salamis,
It's really not learned the thing, have they?
which meant they had to bunch the ships closer together and funnel them in to follow each other in.
Right.
So it's like Thermopylae at sea.
Yeah, they've really not. And that, what was the little channel they put?
Isthmus.
And Artemisia.
Yeah, they've not learned a single thing, have they?
Nope. No, not at
So
all.
it was even more dangerous for the Persians, as although the Greek ships were fewer and smaller, they could move much more effectively in the narrow straits. So obviously if your ship's smaller and it's quicker, then you're going to be the one that's got an advantage, aren't
Yeah.
you?
Think of it like a mini running circles around a double-decker bus.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
The Greek ships are smaller, they're faster, they're in this narrow confine, which is perfect for them. But, you know, Xerxes thinking, this is going to be fine. Doesn't want to miss anything as well. Finds himself a nice little spot at the foot of a nearby mountain where he can get a good view over the sea so he can watch the battle. Get some popcorn, get your friends round.
That's rubbish. So why is he not on a boat actually leading his troops? That's pretty pants.
Because he's watching from... He thinks basically if his troops can see him up on the mountain, being the god king, they'll look up and go, Xerxes is watching, we can do this. Not, Xerxes is sat over there, hang on. How can
I'd
we
be
get
like,
to do all this?
that lazy... You know what? If he's not going to fight, I'm not going to do anything either.
But Xerxes is
I mean,
watching.
to be fair, considering how he's done everything else, I wouldn't want him on a boat anywhere near me. Probably just set it on fire for no reason.
Is he like someone behind him so that if it all goes wrong, they can just be like, you're an absolute muppet, I'm just going to chuck you off the
Just push him
cliff?
off the chair. No, he's surrounded by his courtiers. He's got his snacks. He's got his comfy throne. He's settling in to watch the battle, thinking they'll all look at him, going, "Yeah, we've got to do Xerxes proud."
Right.
So, sure enough, as Themistocles had planned all along, the Persians pressed hard into the straits. So it's going quite well. They bunch up and they make slow-moving targets for the quicker Greek ships to actually attack them.
Just like before.
Yeah.
So on the Persian right flank, the ships who've been told, "Don't worry, it's the Athenians. They'll soon run off." They're in for a nasty surprise.
Yeah.
Because facing them now is Themistocles, and rather than turning tail and legging it, he's there with his 180 ships, 100 of these brand new fancy ancient Greek versions of stealth bombers, and his expert sailors.
Right, okay.
And they're just waiting to give their new ships a go. So they start ramming hard into the Persian right flank. So they just sail around to the side and just sail right through them. It's like a brutal game of dodgeball.
Is this what these ships are designed to do?
Absolutely, they are narrow, they are thin, they're pointy on the front.
Right, okay.
They're just sailing right through them. And this sudden attack on the left, the whole Persian fleet is thrown into disarray. Lines are broken, ships crash into each other. Ultimately, the Persians become sitting ducks for the more agile Greeks,
who also knew where all the jagged rocks and the sandbanks were, so they can effectively push them
onto the rocks, and they know, well, why aren't we sailing through that rock? Whereas the Persians are like,
they've got the home advantage as well.
Home advantage. They've fooled the Persians into doing the worst thing ever, and so they send the rubbish ships to get the Athenians, and the Athenians rock up with their expert sailors with massive forearms, and their best ships, and it's not going well.
Marvellous.
So a good example of this chaos can be seen in what happens to Artemisia. Remember her, one of Xerxes' best commanders.
She a naval commander or
She is absolutely a naval commander.
Right, okay.
She's the badass of the sea.
Is that a formal title?
Yes.
So Herodotus says, I cannot give precise details of the part played in this battle by the various Greek or foreign contingents in the Persian fleet. I must, however, mention Artemisia on account of an exploit which still further increased her reputation with Xerxes. After the Persian fleet had lost all semblance of order, Artemisia was chased by an Athenian trireme. As her ship happened to be closest to the enemy, and there were other friendly ships just ahead of her, escape was impossible. In this awkward situation, she hit on a plan which turned out greatly to her advantage. With the Athenian close on her tail, she drove ahead with all possible speed and rammed one of her friends.
Okay. So it actually turns out it's the ship of one of these people who is saying that she's wrong. Then you hope she gets all the others.
Yeah.
It's exactly what she does. She piles straight into one of the other Ionian commanders.
I wouldn't call that a plan, that's more just vengeance.
It's the female perspective, you see. Because I'm a woman, I can think about what I would do, and it's obviously the same.
No, I remember what you said about me. Say it that way.
Going down.
But what makes this even more confusing is that from his throne on his little perch, Xerxes has no idea what's going on. And as Herodotus tells us,
for the story goes that Xerxes, who was watching the battle, observed the incident, and that one of the bystanders remarked, "Do you see, my lord, how well Artemisia is fighting? She has sunk an enemy ship."
He doesn't know which
They've got no idea what's going on.
She's sunk a ship. It's not really an enemy ship. Xerxes clearly has no idea what's going on, and he even quotes Xerxes' response to the sight of Artemisia's fight and compares it to the rest of his navy. He says,
Xerxes, comment on what was told him is said to have been, "My men have turned into women, my women into men." Yes.
So apart from Artemisia, the Persians aren't doing very well.
But even she's ramming her own ships.
Well, that's because they said bad things about her.
Okay.
But despite the best efforts of individual Persian sailors and ships, the battle ultimately is lost. It continues to rage into the early evening as the mighty Persian fleet was gradually sunk and destroyed. And again, on his overlook, by now Xerxes, even he's realised he's under no illusion as to how the day is going. He's realised that it's not going well. So Herodotus tells us the following.
Xerxes, when he realised the extent of the disaster, was afraid that the Greeks, either on their own initiative or at the suggestion of the Ionians, might sail to the Hellespont and break the bridges there. If this happened, he would be cut off in Europe and in danger of destruction. Accordingly, he laid his plans for escape, but at the same time, in order to conceal his purpose both from the Greeks and from his own troops, he began to construct a causeway across the water towards Salamis, lashing together a number of Phoenician merchantmen to serve at once for bridge and breakwater.
And with that, Xerxes turns around, heads back to Persia, and never comes back to Greece.
I wouldn't either. It's been an absolute shocker of a time for him.
But yeah, he makes sure everyone thinks he's staying, but then he's like, see you later, lads. But that's not it yet.
Oh, God.
So Herodotus says, the sight of this activity made everybody confident that he was prepared to remain in Greece and carry on the war with all possible vigour. There was, however, one exception, Mardonius, who thoroughly understood how his master's mind worked and was in no way deceived.
So he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And ultimately, yeah, with Mardonius is left behind with 300,000 Persian troops to continue the war, even though Xerxes has gone.
Out of the million they started with.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So the obvious point to make about the Battle of Salamis is this idea of significance. I mean, even today, if you go to Athens, the Athenians will tell you the Battle of Salamis is the most important battle in the whole history of the world.
How long ago was this?
Yeah, 2,500 years ago.
And they're still banging on
They're
about
still
it.
banging on about it. But I mean, it is massively significant. At this point, Xerxes runs, he's had enough. Like I said, it's just been a shambles from beginning to end.
Yeah, it just makes him look really weak and like he doesn't know what he's doing.
He runs home crying to his mum.
Yeah.
Atossa's waiting for him going,
Oh, really?
You did what? So yeah, it's a complete mess for the Persians. But again, we've got to look at, well, is it Persian weaknesses or Persian hubris and folly, or is it actually Greek ingenuity?
Bit of both.
Or somewhere between the two.
It seems to me that for the Greeks, Xerxes, they can just play him really well, and he's just very predictable, and he seems to fall into the same traps constantly again and again, and then be like, oh, why am I not winning? It's like, because you've done exactly the same thing as last time that didn't work, and you're doing it again.
Yeah, but third time's the charm.
Well,
it
yeah.
can't always go bad, can it?
You could say that, but also if you look at throughout history and you look at different military commanders, this idea of doing the same thing continuously and not learning from your mistakes is not just something that's levelled at him.
No.
It's something that's levelled at numerous military commanders throughout history. So maybe this is the thing. Maybe they just get too predictable and just do the same thing.
How much command does Xerxes have, or does he delegate all this?
Well, he ultimately makes the decisions.
Yeah, but he's got his war
Salamis,
council or whatever.
In terms of Salamis, he will have allocated the actual planning to his various commanders.
Or not, or Themistocles.
Yeah, or Themistocles. But yeah, again, if we're looking at Greek ingenuity, arguably for Themistocles, the biggest threat wasn't necessarily the Persian navy. It was the other Greeks.
Yeah.
Whether they'd actually stay and do what they were meant to do, or just do one. And you could argue, once the Persians had got into the Straits of Salamis, it didn't matter where the Athenians were. The Persians were at a massive disadvantage, and the big problem the Greeks would have would be, I've said, the other Greeks running off.
Well, that's it. The Greeks might be able to keep saying it's a massive victory and use it in a positive way. But actually, you could say it shows the Greeks in quite a negative light as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, no,
even though they're not,
count it as an Athenian victory.
Yeah.
Everyone else was. Yeah, I mean, there's a little extracts that we've not done in this where, because the Athenians did not get on with the Corinthians, there's one little passage which says the Corinthians actually started sailing away until they came across a ghost ship which told them to go back and fight.
Of course they did.
I mean, even Herodotus says that's some Athenian propaganda.
Oh wow, he has his limits.
He has his
nice
limits.
to know.
Ghost ships, no. Ghost dads, yes.
Stone giants. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But yeah, so the problem the Greeks have is the unity that doesn't exist, and the Athenians count it as an Athenian victory. So there you have it, a nice quick little look at the Battle of Salamis. We hope this has been useful. Thank you for listening. Leave us a comment below, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.